Okay, so when you hear the words alien abduction, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably something terrifying, right? Well, what if I told you that whole story we think we know might be completely backward? Today, we're diving into a really different take on this, a theory that says these abductions aren't attacks at all. They're actually meant to protect us. Yeah, you heard that right. Let's get into it. And really, it all boils down to this one question. Are they enemies or are they our saviors? I mean, the classic image is pure horror, isn't it? Strange beings grabbing people from their beds, snatching cattle from fields. It feels hostile. But what if we've got the motive all wrong? What if it's not about malice at all? What if it's actually about rescue? So, to really wrap our heads around this pretty wild idea of aliens as saviors, we got to start with what we think we know. All the stories that are all over the internet and in movies. We're going to look for the secret behind these abductions, starting with the classic tales we've all heard a million times. And the stories, they kind of follow a pattern, right? Someone's taken from their home, their car, and then they're just returned hours later with a chunk of missing time. Or you hear about cattle being found in these really bizarre situations. And look, this isn't just one or two weird stories. This is the global thing, with countless reports that have basically built the foundation of everything we think about UFOs. And of course, you can't talk about alien abductions for long before you end up at one particular place, the absolute epicenter of all alien conspiracy theories. Yep, we're talking about Area 51. So, what's the real story there? What's the truth? Okay, so officially, it's just a super secret U.S. Air Force base out in the desert. But come on, for decades now, it's been ground zero for conspiracy theories. People claim they've got crashed UFOs there, that they're doing research on actual aliens inside those guarded walls. It's the stuff of legends. All right, now this is where things take a sharp turn. The whole perspective we're looking at today comes from a spiritual teacher named Bapuji, and he makes this just stunning claim. He says all those wild stories about Area 51, the crashed ships, the alien bodies, he says they aren't just rumors. He says they are completely true. But the reason they're true, well, that's where this whole thing gets really, really interesting. So if Babuji's right, what is the shocking truth behind Area 51? If aliens are real and they're here, what do they actually want? Well, according to this source, it's got nothing to do with invasion or taking over the world. Nope. It's about survival. And not just our survival, but the survival of the entire universe. Here's the core idea. The main reason aliens are here is to stop us from blowing ourselves up with nuclear weapons. And you might ask, why would they care? Well, because a nuclear war on Earth wouldn't just be our problem. Apparently, the fallout from something like that would be so devastating, it would literally send shockwaves through the entire universe. And they're not just, watching from the sidelines. The source claims there are actual documented cases of UFOs showing up over British and American nuclear missile sites and, get this, temporarily shutting the weapons down. So this isn't an act of war. It's presented as an act of cosmic preservation. They're trying to save everyone. And of course, here's where the big conspiracy comes in. The claim is that governments around the world, they know all of this. They've got the proof of aliens, proof of what they're doing, but they are intentionally hiding it from all of us. Okay, so that explains why they'd be hanging around nuclear missile sites. But that still doesn't explain the abductions, right? Why the cows? Why the people? Where does that fit into all of this? Well, according to Babuji's theory, there are very specific reasons, and what's wild is how similar the reasons are for both. This is where it gets really fascinating, because we can see the two motives laid out side by side. So let's start with the cows. Why them? According to the source, it's because of their sacred status in Hinduism as Kamadhenu, this divine, wish-fulfilling cow. This apparently gives them a totally unique biology, so they're being studied to help protect humanity. Now, let's look at the humans. The reason here is even crazier. Some of us are supposedly descendants of aliens who got trapped on Earth a long, long time ago. They're being taken to have their DNA improved to make them immune to our diseases. But check out the bottom line, the shared goal. For both cows and humans, the end game is the same, to protect the human race. Let's break down this process. So step one, the idea is that you've got these alien descendants just living among us as regular humans. But here's the catch. They're vulnerable to Earth's diseases. So step two, they get abducted, but it's framed more like a benevolent medical procedure. And that leads to step three, The whole point is to analyze and upgrade their DNA to give them immunity. So from this point of view, it's not terrifying at all. It's an act of protection. It's them taking care of their own. Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, this is the most mind-bending part of the whole theory. If aliens are stopping nuclear wars and they're genetically upgrading certain humans, what's the end game here? What are they building towards? To figure out that end game, the source says we don't look to the future. We have to look to the ancient past. It points to old Hindu scriptures that talk about unions between gods, celestial beings, and human women on Earth. The theory suggests that these weren't just myths. They were a kind of historical record, a precedent for what's happening right now. And that brings us to the final incredible idea. The ultimate goal, according to this source, might be to create a whole new kind of being, something that combines the absolute best of both humans and aliens into one. Kind of like the next step in our evolution. So the question we're left with isn't just, are they friend or foe? It's something much bigger. Are they our creators, our protectors? And maybe, just maybe, are they our future?